Welcome back for another OG Show Live. Mr. Randall, how you doing?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Reel Down.
Welcome back to another episode of Bass Fishing for News.
Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to, once again, the Bass Kayak Adventures.
Brother, this is the final cast.
Another segment of Chasing the Tide, your saltwater connection on the paddle fin.
Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of Feather and Fur. Your host, Brad.
Welcome back to the Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Crystal.
Hey, welcome back to Off the Water.
Happy Susie Q here with Adventures of Outdoor Woman podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Rusty Hook Kayak Fishing Podcast.
We're brought to you by Pelican, built tough for all situations. Go to pelican.com. Eastport Marina on the beautiful shores of Dale Hollow Lake. For all your lodging, kayaking, go to eastport.info. Yak Gadget for all your fine kayak fishing accessory needs. Go to yakgadget.com. What's going on? Facebook Live, YouTube listeners of the podcast, welcome. Jay Randall,
Brian Schiller.
how you doing?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. It's a beautiful Thursday evening. The cold is finally starting to set in.
You should have took the lead on this one. This was your show idea, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, whatever. Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about hunting mishaps. We're gonna, there's been a recent string of events that have been happening in my life, and Brian's been through some stuff in the past, and we got a few more people coming on, and I got a also like a life-threatening story I'd like to share. We'll have about my buddy Scotty, but we'll get into that. But yeah, we were just thinking, it's the season where you're dealing with a lot of sharp stuff, and you're in the woods, and this is always a great time to get hurt, while you're walking through the woods.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, especially tree stands, saddles.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that. Well, I'm sure we'll touch on all facets of that. But real quick, before we jump into the show, I wanted to address something earlier in the week on Armando's show. I put a disclaimer at the beginning of his show, and there was many different reasons for that. Armando expressed some opinions in there that not everybody on Paddle and Fin agreed with, which isn't a bad thing. We're all entitled to opinions. And who am I to say what he can and can't talk about on this podcast? But because there was some anglers involved and things like that, like we just made it a point to make sure that Paddle and Fin was protected, everybody else, in case there was any kind of backlash, because it revolved around the last bass event, Drew Gregory getting disqualified, things like that. So I got some messages. I know Armando got some messages. Armando agreed with it. Just because it was kind of a touchy subject, and we try to stay pretty even keel here at Paddle and Fin. And, I think Armando did a great job in that episode on explaining things. And I think there was a lot of lessons to be taken from that in regards to angler responsibility, knowing the rules, the boundaries, things like that. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there, at the start of our show on why that kind of went in there. It was nothing against Armando or anybody else. It was just to be cautious in today's times. So hopefully everybody understands. So sorry. We'll
Totally Debbie Downer, bro.
Well, it's something you got to talk about. It's something you got to mention, it, like I said, it wasn't to offend anybody. It was more to protect. So
yeah, absolutely.
But we got some guests in the house tonight to join us for this cool little show we're doing tonight. We got John Big Daddy Rapp and Brad, my deer season ends in 30 seconds from opening. Pro Boss.
What's going on, everyone?
What's up,
Morning
brother?
or evening.
What's up, Brad?
Did you
Brad
make a
just stepped
purchase
out his
tonight?
back porch.
No, not off my back porch. I mean, I get to the land, I walk in, I get in my tree stand, I get my jacket on, I see a deer, I shoot it, and I text them and be like, I'm done, boys. Time to duck hunt.
Shut up. Nobody likes you, man. Just shut up.
I hope I do that to you this coming rifle season.
Dude, isn't that the thing though? I know you're gonna be sitting there like you're just be waiting to hear the first crack.
Yeah. That's how it is with rifle season, you know.
Oh my god.
Dwayne Wally in the house. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Dwayne.
What's up, Dwayne?
Good stuff, man. So where do we want to start? How about Jay? Why don't you kick it off? Because you just had some mishaps the other night that were pretty special.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, so I was out last weekend and man, everything went wrong. It was kind of cool in the worst way. But no, I mean it's so I'm using a saddle this year, which isn't a problem at all. None of that. But I ascended the tree and I was already having problems with my drop rope. I was like, just because of the angle with all the branches that were sticking around, the way I had to get up the tree first, there was just no way to like cleanly go up. And I daisy chain it just to eliminate that issue, but I still had issues. But I finally got up, into the tree and got things set up. And no sooner than I go to untangle the drop line, which is still just everywhere, I like totally just knock my bow right off of the arm in the tree, and I just watch it sail to the ground. There's nothing I could do about it. And it was like that slow motion. Yeah. It's kind of like the skateboarders, the snowboarders, anybody who's in alternative sports knows that like when you fall, usually at a high rate of speed or something, everything like slows down a lot. It was like that moment, except I'm watching my bow just quickly descend to the ground. And it landed like right on its cam, and then like my bag ended up like flying off my backpack, and I broke my sight clean off. And again, just kind of, and it's funny, like, and you just have that moment where you just want to scream. You just want, like, you're in the woods, you're just like, oh, and you're just like, no, man, like, what's that gonna do for me right now? Nothing.
Sure.
Except maybe scare another deer. I've already made a ton of noise. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was just unfortunate, man. I mean, climb back down the tree, and luckily I had the crossbow with me, but whatever. I really wanted to shoot the bow out of that tree. It was a little more difficult with the positioning with the crossbow, but not a horrible thing. I mean, the bow works. I've tested it, so we're good there. I got the new sight in like a day and a half, so I popped that back on there. It's almost zeroed, so I don't know. It's what a learning experience that day was.
So what did you learn out of that experience?
I learned to not be a dope, and first of all, take my time a little bit more.
Sure.
And just and I'm still learning too. Never really done a lot of tree stuff, so this is all new for me. The first couple times I did all right, but this time was just, I don't know, everything just kind of went wrong with it. So I mean, I don't know, take my time. I'm going to position my line a little bit better. I may look into other options. I know they basically have like those retractors.
Yep.
A lot of people use, and that's a little easier. I mean, they're a little heavier. But it's an answer to that problem I had. And again, just, I mean, be more conscious of like my surroundings and what's going, like where everything is. It's like, because even when you think things are safe, and I never thought about the bow, I really never have. Now I will put a little bit of blame on the arm, because I don't think it has a good enough base. I never did, but I like the length of it and the strength. That's why I use it. Sure. But it was just in the bark, and it moved. I think it needs like a wider base personally, but I'm the one who knocked it out of the tree. That's fine. you know, but that thing collapsed. So I was like, well, that didn't help, you know. So but yeah, I don't know, man. Just take your time and just you know, you got to practice going up the tree and getting in there and doing that stuff. That's just the way it goes. You know, and I'm sure you know, because you're more the tree stand guy.
Sure.
You know,
well, we got Dwayne Wally says, I'm too old and beat up for a saddle.
Yeah.
So.
I like ground blinds too, bud.
Right on.
But I mean, have you ever had any issues like going up the tree? Like, I don't know, you ever almost slipped out, or I mean, any issues with that, buddy?
I just recently had one. I'm gonna wait for that one.
Okay.
Till hopefully Scotty jumps on here. So
okay.
Hopefully by the time it gets to me, we'll get to that. But how about you, Mr. Rapp? What's a good mishap life lesson?
Well, West Virginia, I've got several stories I was going to help you with here tonight.
Sure.
Two of them are where I was in the capacity of a law enforcement officer, but the one that I had that was the scariest for me was I was using my climber.
Sure.
And I was going up the side of a tree, and it, you know, probably 20 degrees. I got up about 15 to 20 feet up into the tree, and I slid about 10 foot back down. And, you know, so the only thing that really stopped me was my harness, because I hadn't moved it up with me. It was still down as I was going up, and I slid all the way down. But it was scary. So, you know, when it comes to those type of situations, guys, I always get the best technology nowadays that you can get. Back then, this was probably early 90s, and they were still using chains.
Sure.
Instead of the rubberized cords. And
right.
I got rid of that stand real quick.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, think of how awkward that is too, because the way a climber is, you're facing the tree and you're a pretty good amount away from it. So I can only imagine free falling like that. You know,
it definitely made my stomach go away real quick, and I went back down to the ground. I don't smoke, but if I had a cigarette, I would have took a few minutes to enjoy one right there.
You mentioned climbers, man, and I think like Dwayne, I'm too old and beat up for a climber. Like I used to have one, super heavy, like just like the workout you get from climbing up the tree that way, man. Like your core, you know, just gets totally beat up.
Yeah.
Till you get used to it, you know. But yeah, I mean that's an important thing, right? Like, you know, thank God you had the tree strap on, you know.
And you know, and it wasn't the real nice ones they have now. It was basically like a strap that you strapped around, and then I had one strapped around my waist. It wasn't the carabiner type thing that you use when you're doing zip lining and stuff. I was fortunate.
Isn't it like a seatbelt?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's just like a seat
It wasn't very. It was old. I mean, this stand, I was just starting to use it, and I bought it used. It was probably 10 years old when I bought it in the mid 90s. So, but I got rid of it, and that's when they had the new ones out with the nice rubberized back cords, and I never slipped after that. I still have it, but I mean, since I've got into kayak fishing the last 8 years, I've been up to my cabin maybe 20 times. But
well, we'll all come visit your cabin if you're not going up there.
Well, you know,
we'll go make sure.
It's funny.
It's funny
when Jay reached out to me today about this show. As soon as I got off talking to him, my buddy Trooper Green, who helped me build the place, called me and says, "Hey," he hadn't been up there in like 3 or 4 years. he's like, hey, is anybody up at the cabin? And I'm like, no. So he's like, well, I'm going up this weekend. I'm like, outstanding. And so he was going to get some use this year. Well,
Nice.
since my dad died, we haven't been up there, and I haven't been up there in 4 years.
Oh wow. Well, and it's super remote too, right?
Yeah. It's I mean, it is. It's about, I would say, 8 miles off the hard road, the 4-lane. There's no power back there. It's back in the mountains, and it takes you to get to it. You have to do a loop around to get to it. You can't. There's no way to get to it. By 4-wheeler, it takes you probably 35 minutes. By truck, you're talking 45. To get to it via the trails. But I'll go ahead and while I've got the floor, I'll tell you this one. Where my cabin is a lot of laurel thickets. And there's a lot of black bear.
Sure.
And Paul, the guy that's going up this weekend, he is a bear hunter, and so he would always go up there, and he would take all his gear up there, his stuff, and he'd always hang it on our outside on one of our 4x4s. My cabin's a little 24 by 24, and it has a loft, and above the loft is a sleeping area, so we can sleep 6 to 8 people in there.
Oh, that's cool.
But I come up there after one winter, and where he'd been hanging his bear gear and always had all his scents, his bear scents, and a black bear had come up and gnawed that 4x4 almost through. I had the cooler. We have our cooler sitting outside, and we left one day, came back the next morning. All my coolers were ripped open, and I had 4 or 5 20 or the 2-liter bottles of Pepsi and Coke. They had chewed through those and ate all that. So we have a bear problem in West Virginia. So.
Oh, geez.
But that was several years ago. They're still here. I had one earlier in the week. There was a juvenile run over right here next to the house.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, looking forward to seeing how he does this weekend.
Good luck.
Maybe we'll have a paddle and fin retreat. You guys can come down here. We can just have a big barbecue and hang out up there or something.
Don't threaten us with a good time.
We'll have to get Jay a nice big bubble.
That's big. Yeah. That's all right. I'm just gonna eat, drink, and swim in permethrin. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to drink. This should be fine.
That's funny. That's funny. How about you, Mr. Hurlboss?
Well, we'll stick with the trees. So I got one. Is I don't know, 10 years ago now, hunting up in the north woods of Wisconsin. Saturday went fine. Left our tree stands I was using a climber. Left it at the base of the tree overnight, rather than hump it back in. No one's going to mess with it. When we got there in the morning, we had realized we had a ton of freezing rain.
Ooh.
So my climber is covered in freezing rain. So of course, because I'm out there deer hunt, I'm still going to climb the tree. So I chipped off as much as I could, as quietly as I could. And as I'm climbing the tree, I'm about halfway up to where I want to get, and my one foot slips. And right about when my harness caught me, like right before my harness caught me, my knee slammed like with all my weight into the climbing platform. Like I was safe. Like it wasn't like, I mean, my harness was right there. Like I wasn't going to fall. My climber didn't slip, but my foot slipped right out from underneath. Like, cause it had the quick stirrups is what they were called. So they were almost just like 2 plastic hooks.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, there was nothing to hold your heels in.
Oh, wow.
So like, they're great when it was dry, but in freezing rain, those things were a nightmare. Like I only had it happen once, but that was enough to make it a nightmare. And my knee slammed into that metal aluminum stand floor so hard. I just kind of I remember just sitting there like, that hurt. Like that really hurt.
Dude. Yeah, that's brutal, man. That is brutal.
I remember getting a text from my buddy like, what was that? Like that on my knee.
Oh. I thought you were gonna say you got up the tree and the tree was all iced up, and that's what made you slide down.
Mm-mm. No, there was ice on the tree, but my climber cut through that really good. The cables it had on it really did a good job of biting hard. So I didn't slip at all. I wasn't worried about slipping on the tree, but I didn't think my boot was going to slip out of there, and boy, did it slip.
Sure. Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like Seek One started doing a podcast, and they had a guy on like 2-3 weeks ago, I think it was. They also did a video with this guy, and basically, I think he was in Alabama or Georgia. Goes out to hunt, climbs up in his stand. As he's going to clip in to his tree strap, something happened, and he like stepped out of his tree stand, fell, hit a branch on the way down, which broke his back, and then when he hit the ground, broke his neck. His cell phone's in his pocket, but he can't reach it.
Yep.
He laid out there for, I think it was 2 days before they found him. So I'm going to drop the link to that in the chat, because there's a lot of great info in there that is super valuable. But yeah, that's what I think about too. And so Scotty didn't jump in, but it was Saturday. Went out to hunt public land. Saw a bunch of people running around the woods, which later found out they were actually tracking a deer that a guy had shot earlier in the morning. So I went and hunted the other side of this piece of public land, which was actually good for my wind. But I kind of got out there a little late and got to my tree, found a tree to get up in, right where a bunch of paths cross, and saw a ton of scrapes, rubs, things like that on the way out. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. So trying to get up there, get set up, and I'm using the helium climbing sticks, and I kind of set my stand right above the Y in this tree on the one straighter trunk. And as I stepped off my last step, it kind of like twisted off the tree and dropped down. Well, I'm standing in the Y of the tree, so I'm fine. But I'm like, how am I going to get down? My backpack's still on the ground. My bow is still on the ground. And I'm stuck up in this tree. And I had almost texted Scott saying, like, hey, you got to come save me, dude. But fortunately enough, like, the last two sticks were kind of stacked fairly close. I didn't space them out a ton because of the Y of this tree. I couldn't, exactly get it. So it was spaced. So I was stepping up higher. So I was able to, work my way down to that third stick and get that stick straightened out. But I mean, had Scott not been out there and it was just me, myself, like, who's going to come straighten out my climbing stick to get me straight? So I think the thing I took away from that is just kind of mess with it a little bit more, make sure it's totally solid. And again, it goes back to what Jay was talking about. Don't be, rushing to get set up. I think a lot of times we do that. So last night when I went out, I definitely took my time. I was like, whatever, if a deer walks in on me right now, great. But at least I'm going to be safe getting up and down this tree. So that was kind of my mishap. I almost spent the night in the tree. So that would have been fun.
Has anyone here had the pleasure of falling from a height?
Not from hunting.
The closest I've come is like missing that last step, going backwards off the tree, because I always use climbing sticks. Back in the day, it was the steel ones or whatever, and you get a 20-foot section or whatever. And I've a couple times, like, especially at night when you're getting down, miss that last step, and then you're almost falling backwards. Like, holy crap, what did I just do?
Yep. Even like the last one down to the bottom, like
Yeah.
For whatever reason, for me, it seems like it's much easier to like go up than it is to come down
Sure.
for that last step. Cause you think it's closer than it is and it's not. And
Right.
then for me, it's like the lineman's belt was probably a little bit longer, when I got up that first time, so it's like, I always notice
Sure.
that I always got to be careful.
And in the same light, when you set your climbing stand up to get in it to start climbing up, it seems like when you go back down, you never come down the same way that you went up. So you're awkward. You're either on the downhill slope, which makes it more difficult to get out because that upper or the bottom one's too low. Anyway, I always have issues when I was doing that. But talking about that story, I think it was Brad was talking about with the guy hanging, broke his neck. Who was it?
He was on the ground.
Yeah, he fell.
That was one of my situations when I was a trooper back in 1995. We only had 3 troopers that covered a whole western area, like 30, 40 miles. So we only had one working a shift. And we would always work with our DNR quite a bit. And he got a call where a hunter didn't come back in. So his wife told us the area that he was in. We spent 2 days looking for him, and we found him hanging in his harness. Yeah. He was still probably about 12 feet off the ground. And that back in that time frame, no cell phones, texting was still not real. I don't even think texting was a thing in '94.
No,
might have been the
pagers.
Anyway, in that area there was no signal anyway, so we were lucky to find him. And he had a broken back. He was still alive. We got him out of there. He had hypothermia. But he very lucky.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Like listening to that podcast with Seek One and just listening to that guy talk, like it was just like, oh my God, dude, I can't even imagine. And that was the thing too that he had mentioned, which I'm usually somewhat pretty good on, but like lately I kind of slacked on, was he didn't tell anybody exactly where he was. They knew a general area, but it was like the general area was like 3,000 acres. So
do you guys, when you guys go up now, y'all are still active hunters, and I mean, really you need to have something up in the tree that's visible to human eyes, like orange. I mean, because all bow hunters, a lot of guys this time of year, completely decked out in the most camo, best mossy oak patterns that you can get to blend in with your environment. But you need to have something so you can be found, and either some type of reflective tape or something that when someone's shining a flashlight, they can find it if they're shooting up into trees with a wide beam or something. But guys need to think about safety just for the purposes if they don't get home and people are out looking for them.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point, man. But I mean, what I've been doing lately is when I get to my spot, I drop a pin on Onyx and I send it to my wife, or I'll send it to a buddy that I'm hunting with. So that way they know if like I don't make it back to my truck, they know exactly where to go to find me.
That's a great thing to do.
Yep.
And that was part of it, right? Like, and that's what that guy mentioned. He was like, had I sent somebody GPS coordinates to my location, would things be different? Probably not, because of the way he fell and broke his back and his neck and things like that. But he wouldn't have laid out there for 2 days. And yeah, there was some experiences, and down there you got to deal with hogs, and he heard them rustling around, and he's like, this is it. Like, this is how I'm going out. I'm going to get eaten by a bunch of wild hogs, which very well possibly could have happened, and thank God it didn't. But
Yep. Yeah, anything can happen out there, man. I got another one about the ground blind.
sure.
Just another case of probably just going too fast, just not thinking about, but I don't know. It was just like any other day. I was already all set up, in the blind. I have an arrow knocked, it's sitting in front of me in one of the bow holders that goes in the ground, and I can't remember what the reason why, but I had to like shift something around. So in my infinite wisdom, I left the arrow knocked. And I put it off to the side. I like leaned the bow off to the side. And I'm like, it'll be safe right there. Well, in all my shifting around, whatever the hell I was doing, somehow I got that thing to rock towards me, and I was going down at the same time. And I literally saw and I was slowing down as I saw this. I saw like the broadhead enter like near my armpit as I was going down, and this thing was moving. And I was like, whoa. I was like, what am I doing? Holy stupid. Why do I have an arrow tip sticking straight up right now? Thank God I was paying attention, but if I was going too fast, just think about, an armpit shot with a broadhead and not a mechanical
you got an artery
one.
up there, dude.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Is that the crossbow?
Done. No, that was with the bow. I was just being lazy. I just didn't take it off. And because I was like, oh, this will just take a second. Well, it turns out that's probably all it would take to take you out. But learned a valuable lesson with broadheads that day. Like, don't be an idiot, take the, de-knock or whatever, take the arrow off, put it down, leave it out of the way. It's just stupid. I was like, but it's just things you learn, right? You're just like, I think there's some arrogance in it too. You're just like, I'm fine all the time,
Sure.
and it's like we said, it's the littlest things that'll get you. It's like the little, here I am in a safe environment. I'm on the ground. It's like there's really nothing to happen me here, but there is a sharp object sticking straight up. That's razor sharp,
Well, that's like walking through the woods with an arrow knocked. You know what I mean? Like you trip, you fall. Even the back side of that, the knock side of your arrow. If you fall on that with some force, dude, that's going right through you.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to hurt.
Yeah, it's easy to do, man. It's a lot of things we overlook. It's take your time. This is the time of year, man. You're out there and you're trying to be alone, so nobody knows you're there.
Sure.
For the most part, without dropping a pin or somebody knowing exactly where you hunt, but take your time. It's what is it? What's that saying? About the tortoise and the hare. I can't remember. Slow wins the race or something.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah. So that's what you're looking to do. You don't want to be out there like everybody's excited. We get it. Been there.
If you're hiking up some ridges and
oh yeah,
a little ways back, Jay is definitely going slow and steady.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to take my time. You know what, though? I'm going to say this now, Mr. Schiller. I remember you huffing with me a few times.
Hey, I might be huffing, but I ain't slowing down. I'm going.
I don't know. I don't know, man. Like when I took you out grouse hunting for your first time, I thought you might die.
Oh.
Yeah, that's when I was like severely out of shape still. I'm still out of shape. Don't get me wrong. But I hike more. And that's the funny thing too, right? Like fishing season, we're all just launching our boats and getting in the boats. We all have motors, so it's like we've gotten totally lazy in that aspect. And then hunting season hits and it's like,
oh, it's a
I gotta hike 900 yards back into this spot. Like, ooh.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Yep.
But
or you could be like the guys that this story's all about. And it's the guys that can't get out of their damn truck when they're hunting.
Oh, well, they're.
So
are we talking about like people who can get out of the car that don't?
No.
Yeah.
I'm talking about your road hunters.
And the illegal hunters.
Yeah.
So, in 1992, I'm a brand new trooper, and I get to go out and work. I'm always out till 2 or 3 in the morning. Anyway, it's hunting season. And the DNR come to me about or about 7 o'clock one morning, and they're like, "Hey, man, we're going to set up one of our decoys. You want to come out and play?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, yeah, I'd like to do that." So the county that I worked in was huge apple farms, apple orchards everywhere, whole mountainsides of apple orchards, right? So a lot of dips and stuff. So they set one of these decoys up. We set it up. It was about 175 yards off of one of the roads on a knoll, but we could sit behind it, and then we had a chase car or a car up the road you could radio to come in, which that was me. So anyway, to make a long story short, we weren't up there. It was probably only about 9 p.m. And I heard the shot, and then I get a radio call, said, "Hey, we just got one. We lit him up. He took off. He's headed your way." So I blocked the road, threw my lights on. Here he come. Drew down on him, walked over, got him out of his vehicle, took his stuff. They come up behind me, right? And so we're making the arrest. And while we're there, we hear a shot.
Oh, jeez.
So here we go. They go back down. They get another guy, and this time, this guy already had 2 does laying in the back of his truck that he killed on the way up through there.
Oh, Jesus.
So I hate road hunters. I mean, I hate guys that are so damn lazy that they can't even get off their 4-wheeler when they're hunting. Because like I was telling you guys earlier, my place up there, I got 190 acres, and it's covered with. It's an old strip job, coal mine strip job, and there's a lot of old timber roads. And I've got it posted. I've got a couple young boys now that go up there and take care of it for me, and they've got it posted. But I've been up there, up in a tree, like Brad and we were all talking earlier. I'd be 25, 30 feet up, and I could hear a 4-wheeler coming around the mountain, coming right up in there. And I'm not too far off the trail, and you see them coming right there in their clothes, hunting right off the 4-wheeler.
Is that illegal in West Virginia?
It's illegal on my 190 acres.
Sure. Well, I'm saying hunting from a 4-wheeler.
Because
I believe Wisconsin it's illegal. Illinois, I know it's illegal.
Unless you have a disabled permit in Wisconsin. If you have a disabled
in
permit,
West
you can
Virginia,
hunt from a vehicle.
Okay.
You can hunt from a vehicle if you're disabled, and we've actually got some of our state parks are set up to assist hunting. But honestly, I'm not up to date on the laws now. Where I've been retired for 10 years, what they are and with what they can do.
Sure.
But it's just aggravating.
If they're doing that, they're probably spotlighting too, I imagine.
Oh, no doubt. There's no doubt about it. But those are the stories that I had for you.
Go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say spotlighting. Come on, Jay, get with the times. We're all running night vision and thermal.
Now.
Taking your coyote guns out just to go look for deer.
I could have used that
exactly.
last night.
Scopes can be swapped.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, technically, thermal's legal to hunt deer with in Wisconsin. I mean, I can hunt deer with thermal. I have to stay within normal shooting hours, but I could use a thermal sight on my deer rifle.
Would that help you?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I get. Well, I mean,
No.
I guess low light, but
I mean, last night I had it had to be at least 3 does coming on me, and I didn't see the one till she was about 10 feet from me because she was in the woods, and the canopy is still thick. However, the field to my left was nice and bright and beautiful, and whatever. And I think I had 2 minutes left in shooting light, but I was bow hunting. So
yeah, I know how that goes. You're like, is it a deer? Like, you're like looking all these different ways, moving. Like, is that a leaf? I can't tell.
I knew it was deer coming down the hill, but like I said, I couldn't see her till she was about 10 feet from the tree. Yeah. And all I could see was her head. And, I'm not taking that shot, like I could see her back a little bit, but, it was just It's
Yeah.
too late. I'm like, there's no
Yeah.
point in
Who wants to
chancing
spend
this
the
and
next 6
watching
hours
it.
chasing one, right?
Yeah,
Right,
no kidding.
exactly. So
That's always that decision too. It's like, do I want to walk in the woods all night?
what else you got, Brad?
I've got one other one that really comes to mind. This was early on in my waterfowl hunting career. I had a small 14-foot mirrorcraft fishing boat, like older, like late 60s, early 70s, but it was the small mirrorcraft. It wasn't like the big deep V fisherman one. The thing maybe was 3 feet wide, super shallow V. It was only rated for like a 9 horsepower.
Sure.
Me and a buddy were out hunting public land, and we knew a thunderstorm was coming, and we went out intentionally knowing that the birds are going to come back early because they're going to get fading light. Like they're going to come back in before shooting time's over, knowing we're going to roll the dice and we're going to make it out before this thunderstorm. We had an awesome hunt. And as we're packing up, like the wind starts to pick up and we're heading back. And I'm happy I put a bilge pump in that boat, but that bilge pump couldn't come anywhere close to keeping up with the amount of waves we were taking over it.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
Like Buddy and I were like, it was like, this is back before I was kayak fishing or canoeing. Like I never wore a life jacket. Like the life jackets were in the boat, but you're in a boat. You don't wear a life. Like we actually put our life jackets on. Like at one point in time, I'm like, man, we're gonna have to start bailing water by hand too, because this bilge pump is not keeping up. Like it was pretty sketchy. But I mean, we made it back. Everything was fine. But it's like now, like looking back at like what I learned, is have a boat for the conditions. Like know what your boat's actually capable of. Honestly, in that situation, a kayak would have been better. I sit on top of kayak because at least it would have bailed.
Right.
And
right.
Probably break less waves, man. That boat was way overloaded.
I had that scenario fishing one night because we used to go up and troll Lake Geneva, crystal clear Glacier Lake. Like best time to fish it was at night. So we were out trolling. We come around this point and the wind kicks up and the waves were, like probably 2 to 3 foot, maybe slightly more. Boat handled it totally fine. However, once they started to kick up, my buddy, who had been out with me dozens of times, decided to tell me at that point, "Hey bro, I don't know how to swim." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
So, I was like, "Look, dude, grab a life jacket, sit on the floor. We'll go back in. I don't want you to be uncomfortable, Plus, I don't feel like jumping in the water. It was fall, I don't feel like jumping in and rescuing you. But that's the thing. Like, don't be bashful. Let people know that you're with. Like, if you don't know how to swim, like, it's not the end of the world, dude. But at least let somebody know. So that way, if something were to happen, you trip, fall out of the boat, or roll your kayak or something like that. On the New Canoe podcast this week, I was talking to a kid, and he's down on Lake Lanier, and he said they had a ton of drownings down there this year, and one of them was a guy that was out on a paddleboard that didn't know how to swim. Like, dude. I don't know what the thought process was on that one.
Well, and here's the thing too, right? They have that waist. They have that waist life preserver, that inflatable one. Like he wasn't even wearing that. You know what I mean? I mean, was he?
I have no idea.
Anytime I see paddleboarders, they don't got anything on.
Yeah, usually they don't. You know? It's and I believe that's illegal because it's still a watercraft.
They gotta right. I would think they would still at least have to have a life jacket on the boat.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
But it's not a boat, right? It's a
paddleboard.
paddleboard.
It's listed as a watercraft. The law
you have to have one
watercraft.
You have to have one in a canoe. I mean, same difference. You got to have one in a kayak. But yeah,
it's a paddle craft.
Yeah.
Whether it's so.
But we always see that, right? I mean, back to the subject though. A paddleboard, that's probably the most intimate you're going to be with the water in terms of how close you are versus like a kayak. So if you don't know how to swim, like I would say your chances of falling off of a paddleboard are way better than out of a kayak.
Yeah.
Agreed.
You know, so if you don't know how to swim, you got no business being in the water. Not like that. If you can't save yourself,
Right.
then you shouldn't be out there alone.
Agree.
I mean, just learn. Actually, that's the girlfriend said the same thing to me once on the kayaks. She never told me that. We're like out there. She's like, I can't swim, right? And I was like, what? I was like, really? I was like, no, you tell me. I was like, okay. Well, I mean, she's wearing her PFD, but I mean, it's like, okay, well, all right, let's just hang out near the shore, I guess. I don't know, but I mean, it's just always interesting. I mean, some people hold it back to think it's like a bad thing. They just won't tell you what they're just putting themselves at risk because you're not prepared for it now.
Right.
And I remember taking training for that when I was younger as a kid, the YMCA. Drowning victims will tend to drown you too. So they teach you this technique of going up to them and basically kicking them with your feet, like pushing them, not kicking them, but pushing them to shore. Like you just keep pushing them, but you stay away from them because all they want to do is grab onto you. And as soon as they do that, they're pulling you under. So can get a little sketchy.
I had a little bit of a sketchy mishap that could have gone really bad. This northern duck opener. New duck hunter. Yeah, Eric, if you're watching, I'm calling you out, buddy.
Oh, Farticus.
We decided we were going to paddle up this creek and possibly jump shoot some birds. And he was super excited. Like, I know that feeling. Like, my first waterfowl hunt, like, all I wanted to do was shoot a bird, right? And I kept going, hey, Brad, can I shoot now? Hey, Brad, can I shoot now? And Brad kept going, no, they're too far away, dude. So it was a similar scenario. We were paddling up this creek, and I told him, I was like, hey, dude, whatever you do not shoot my direction. And some geese kind of popped up out of nowhere, flying, and they were a little too very much out of range. And old Farticus decided to sling some steel shot out there, and it wasn't directly over my head, but it was pretty close. My ears were ringing from it. And I know Brad has had a similar situation happen in closer encounter, but I mean that's a thing too. Like, and I had explained to him as well, like, and I tried to lay out the groundwork so none of this happened, right? Like when you're like we did a lot of sitting on the shore, sitting in the kayaks, butted up against shore. And I was like, all right, there's this imaginary line between us, and you only shoot that way and I'll only shoot this way, so that way there's no, and it's the same way pheasant hunting too,
Yeah,
you could swing a little bit to the side, but if your buddy's over there, why even take the chance, right?
I can see you guys, man. Why do I just picture the Ghostbusters crossing streams,
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, even like when we're doing the deer runs, like how conscious we are of each other.
Sure.
Like we'll wait. Like if we don't see anybody, we'll wait.
Yeah.
Until we see, because we walk. Obviously we're in orange, so it's easier to see you, but you could still be blocked pretty good, and you can't see anybody.
Well, especially with a rifle, right? Like,
yeah,
that
definitely.
rifle bullet could go minimum 200-300 yards depending on what you're shooting. But
yep,
I mean, even still, I mean, him and I were probably 10 feet from each other.
Oh, sure.
And he kind of put one up over my head, and I was like, bro. And he felt super bad about it. Like, I'm not going to deny that. Like, he apologized multiple times, felt horrible about it because we had that conversation. But again, he got excited and he didn't slow down, take his time and think about things, Yep.
So, yeah, the excitement, just rushing it, forgetting safety. That's the thing. I mean, it's so crucial just to know your surroundings. I mean, which I think, said it earlier, which this will be a good segue into, like, I'm going to do this brief story of my buddy Scotty, who's actually from Wisconsin. He's a avid hunter. Like, he's hunts fowl, deer, all kinds of stuff. And he went out to him and some buddies went out to Colorado to hunt elk. And they're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, they're bringing tents, everything. They're not doing like the TV stuff, They're out there, for the long haul. And they had noticed that they had smelled smoke earlier in the day. They thought somebody else was camping by them or something. Not a big deal. But as things progressed, they actually found themselves in the middle of a forest fire and nobody knew where they were. And it got so bad for them that they had to leave everything behind. Tents, bows, everything got trapped in the fire, got burned. These guys almost got trapped, and they had to figure out a way out of the woods and rely on their senses. And again, this is a very small, this is not the entire story, but this is more or less the footnotes. But I mean, when we say a mishap, I mean, this is about as worse, or about as bad as it gets, besides a couple other things that trump this. But I mean, these guys got out at the skin of their teeth, like literally. They actually said if they made one, there was this one moment where they decided to go another way than the other way. If they went the other way, they all would have been gone. They never would have made it out. And it was a really big forest fire. So, I mean, we get really complacent in where we're at, and we're enjoying something, and then all of a sudden Mother Nature just comes out of nowhere.
Well, especially being from like upper Midwest, right? Like
Yep.
you don't necessarily think of forest fires, but you go out west, that's a common occurrence,
Mm-hmm.
So you got to kind of think and plan for that type of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. But we'll have him on the show one of these days and get that whole story, because I think when he tells it is obviously so much better. But it's just interesting just to hear of all the decisions they had to make.
Sure.
And to leave all your stuff behind. You know what I mean? Just to be like, all right, this is going to slow me down. We can't bring this with. But interesting. A real nice guy. I mean, very, I mean, he's an outdoorsman through and through as well. I mean, he's very, he's well acquainted with, hunting and fishing and all that other stuff. Matter of fact, he bought 2 kayaks for me.
Nice.
But I mean, he's always out there. But yeah, it just happens to the best of us, right? Even the most prepared people can find themselves in, an interesting situation during hunting.
For sure.
And that can happen up north too. I mean, it just really depends. It just has to be the not so perfect circumstances, so to speak. And but yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess what we take from all this is there's so many things that could happen, little and big, and everything. All your actions have reactions of some sort, out in the world. So you just got to kind of take your time and limit your exposure to danger if you can, and then just make sure your loved ones know where you're at.
Yep.
Make a plan. They always say make a hunting plan.
Yep.
Tell a friend, whatever, however you got to do it. Show somebody on a map. There's a lot of ways you can do it with Google Maps, Onyx. You can just go on Onyx and take the coordinates and throw them to somebody too. You don't have to throw them an Onyx pin because they probably won't be able to use it.
Sure.
That's one of the things we did at our cabin, Jay, was we have a map up on the wall of our, and it's got the property lines all on it.
Oh, that's smart.
And on each ridge, we got our ladders. We got about 3 ladder stands out, so people could go hit those ladder stands if they wanted to.
Mm.
And we got those marked. So if I was up there hunting and somebody come up there and they couldn't find me, maybe I left my phone at the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have the ability. They at least have the 3 locations marked that they can go to.
Sure.
So another thing, if you own property, folks, mark those places for people to be able to find you.
Yep. It's huge. I wanted to do number 1 beginner mistake that you did. Could be anything. It doesn't have to be deadly or safety related.
Deadly.
But number 1 beginner hunting mistake. We'll start with Brad.
Wow, would it throw me right on the spot with this one?
Yep.
Are we talking what are we talking here? Are we talking safety wise? Are we talking just
it could be anything? Anything.
Chasing limits rather than enjoying the experience.
I like that.
And I know, I mean, I talk a lot about that on my podcast, that it's about the experience and it's not necessarily about the harvest of the animal. And I know
Right.
all hunters, in my opinion, go through that phase. They do. They start to learn, they get confidence. And then, like, that next level, their next goal is, I need a limit. I need a limit of birds. I need a big buck, like whatever it is. Like, we all start chasing limits or big deer. And I know some people that really enjoy chasing big deer. So that's not really necessarily what it's about. It's about, even like, they have to shoot a deer. Let's put it that way. They have to shoot a deer, or they need that limit of ducks. They need that limit of woodcock or grouse, or they need that limit of pheasants. And that's the only thing that makes that hunt enjoyable, is if they get that limit. And they're completely missing out on the entire experience because they're focused on, it's got to be that limit of birds or they failed. And that's not what it is. Like, there's no success or failure other than what you take away from the hunt. The success is the experience, and it's much more than just that limit or shooting an animal.
Preach it.
Sure. Preach on, brother.
Preach it.
On. Amen. I like it. I like it. No, I agree with that, man. I agree
Totally.
with that.
I've gotten a lot of enjoyment from Jay's photographs the past few weeks.
Mr. Elk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, like I said, man, I'm an accidental elk expert now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know how not to find them, but find them like good. I don't know, whatever. I don't know. I just get lucky, dude. What was that last night picture, dude? That the size of that one, that's a big boy.
Yeah.
That was big.
Sure.
I mean,
And like, again, that's on a hill too. That's like a cut, like on a transition area. So that camera is pretty high.
Jay, if you're going to keep hunting elk country and not seeing any deer, you need to start bringing a better camera with, so at least you can get some baller photography out of it.
Definitely.
Well, there was another option, and I took that one. I'm just hunting another direction now, away from them. You know what? I love elk; they're really cool, but I'm really tired of seeing them.
Yeah,
like super tired of it.
Yeah, if you can't harvest one,
dude, like was just the thing was, backstories. I saw deer in these areas before hunting season, and now it's like, all I see are elk. That's it. You know, and I mean, and I walk up on them. Like, that's the other thing. Like, I'm having encounters that people would probably love to have, and I'm like, this sucks. I mean, like, it's cool, but like, you're not what I'm looking for.
Right.
Know?
Yeah. You don't want those encounters coming up in November,
you know, it's like
you'll have to get up a tree to get away from them.
Yeah, well, dude, I've been bumping them, and I mean, it's crazy how close I've been. Like, just like personally, you know, and then having them come up the blind and then biting the blind. I was like, just like, can you guys? And then they stare at you for like 10 minutes. I'm like, can you guys go? You're kind of making us harder, you know.
I want you to do a test, Jay. I want you to get some elk estrus, put a little on your pants, and run around some bull elk and see if anything happens.
Oh, I don't know if I want that. Yeah, that's a whole no. I'm gonna keep this. Nope.
That's funny. My very first hunting experience was my first sit. I got a bow, been shooting it a bunch. Sit in the stand. I have 4 does come in, and I shoot the one, and like I was new to it. YouTube was still new, so I didn't watch a ton of hunting stuff. Like, was on some forums, read some things, this and that. But when I shot that doe, I didn't watch where she went. I didn't pay attention to where I shot her. I thought I hit her right behind the shoulder. Well, lo and behold, it was a little further back. And, you know, luckily I had a mentor with me. And, you know, he was like, "Where'd you hit it?" And I was like, "Right behind the shoulder." Well, we find my arrow, and he's like, "You didn't hit her anywhere close to behind her shoulder." I gut shot her. Ooh. And like, I was super excited. It was my first deer. So, you know, you got those nerves, things like that. And I just wanted to find my deer. And I was taught a very valuable lesson that night. And, you know, we kept tracking it. We were finding little things here and there. And, but it was night. And we made it to the edge of the next strip of woods. And he's like, "I'm going to tell you this right now. More than likely, this deer is bedded down right here. she's not dead. If we go in there, we're going to bump her. She's going to run. We're never going to find her. Or we go home, you get zero sleep because you're all upset and stomach's in knots, wondering if you killed this deer or if you just injured her. And then we reconvene back here first thing in the morning, and we'll sit, we'll hunt, and then we'll get down and find her. Lo and behold, we stopped 40 yards from her. She didn't move out of her bed, and I got my deer. But it's that old saying, when in doubt, back out. It was a valuable lesson. You see guys make that mistake all the time, and they continue to bump deer, because they're just wanting to get it rather than backing out and waiting for them to expire. So, how about you, Mr. Rapp? We're going to end this one with Jay.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell everybody, all of us are kayak anglers, and we always dress for success, correct?
Sure.
Well, in hunting, dress for the coldest weather.
Yeah.
You can shed clothes a lot easier out in the woods than you can put them on. And socks are so important.
Yeah.
High quality socks, you cannot go wrong. Because everybody, especially you guys that climb trees, your feet get cold first. So I dress to peel off, and for goodness sake, get the best pair of socks you can wear.
Yep.
Or best pair of boots combination, and have the, if you're going to spend money, spend it on your feet.
Yep. Cotton kills.
Yeah.
Don't get any cotton. It's the worst enemy.
Dress in layers.
Yep.
If you get all sweated up on your walk in, the odds of you staying warm is just not going to happen. So exactly what John said, make it so you can strip down and go in. And I would rather be a little cold when I got to my stand so I can put my layers back on. Because if I'm hot and sweaty, I'm going to lose all that heat. And I wear good clothing. I wear good base layers, merino wool. I wick sweat very well. But once you get hot and sweated up, it's really hard. Once you cool back off, it's really hard to it's for me to retain heat.
Yeah, that the other day, what was it, Saturday? I'm gonna see how far exactly it was. I knew I had a long hike in, and I just went out with an underlayer and my hoodie on, because I was hiking in a stand, a bunch of climbing sticks, my bow. Yeah, it was almost 900 yards. It was an 890-yard hike.
That's a long walk.
So, and I knew that. And then there was wind that night too. So that wind hits you when you're all sweated up, man. It just chills you down real quick. So I stuffed my backpack and some extra put my jacket stuffed into my backpack with some other layers. So once I got up in the tree, settled in, cooled down a little bit, then I layered back up, that's huge. That's huge. For the longest time, I didn't do that. And I froze. My feet would be cold and numb. And I was like, oh, I need better boots and this and that. And it was a combination of better boots, one thick merino wool sock, and that's all I wear, So.
Yeah, you got to know your body though too, right? So
sure,
you got to figure out if you're a big sweater, if you're not, do your extremities get cold? You got, and then hot hands. I remember, I think one of the funniest things was, it's you knew about them, of course, but me bringing them hunting, and then you were like, oh, let me try them, and then you're like, these things are great.
Yeah.
Because it eliminates a layer, right? And also you can manage your feet, especially your feet. Especially if you were in rubber boots and stuff. Again, my feet tend to get cold, so I have to, even with marine wool, I'll throw some hot hands in there, the foot ones or toasty toes and whatever. You just got to figure out how to manage your heat, or your temperature and everything. But I walk out there I remember in the winter. I was walking out there with a thick jacket, and I was like, that was just the worst thing to do ever.
Yeah.
So go down to a base layer, walk in there and just be a little chilly, and then put on the heavier stuff later.
Sure. Number one beginner mistake, Jay Randall.
I mean, you brought up a good one. I agree with you about yours, about what you were saying about bumping the deer. Because as you know, you were with me and you allowed me to do that one day, just I guess to learn a lesson,
Yeah.
And I learned a really big lesson on that one because I lost that deer. Found her and then lost her, found her and then lost her.
Yep.
So I would say definitely, I guess it falls more into take your time. Learn the ways. Like, I mean, I've had the benefit of, hunting with people who know what they're doing. So I've learned kind of quicker and I put in a lot of time, but it's so easy to make these mistakes and everybody's going to make, I mean, it could even be like leaving your release in your vehicle,
Sure.
or leaving your quiver. Like I've heard stories of that. People walk out and they're like, where are my arrows?
Yeah, I usually make a mental checklist as I'm getting ready before I take off into the woods. I got that
Yeah.
checklist. I got my stand, I got my sticks, I got my backpack, I got my bow,
Yep.
releases on my wrist, got my arrows, got my layers. All right, good. Let's go.
Think about how much stuff we take in too. Isn't
Sure.
that crazy? It's like,
Sure.
but yeah, take your time. Make sure have your own checklist of, like Brian's saying, all that stuff. I mean, it's all relative, and we're all going to make different mistakes, and we're going to make other mistakes along the way too. But
Sure.
yeah, I'd say don't rush anything. That's the worst you can do.
See, I thought for sure yours was going to be either
don't
make sure you bring a nose plug or a clothespin for your nose for your first gut job, or work on your gag reflexes.
That's right. So it's, I mean, you know what? I'm not ashamed, man. It's all good. I've learned. I just take it in now. Oh yes,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm quite like that. Yeah. Well, I had to keep it together for Seth.
Yeah.
Can't watch the old man like Hork. Like, we nicked that poop shoot and that was all over. I was like,
oh boy.
I was like, that was a nasty one.
Yep.
I'm just sitting over here laughing about you guys humping all this gear and like with me and deer hunting, I'm done in 5 minutes. At this point, I'm just taking a rifle.
That's because we're men and we hunt public land.
Yeah,
Mr. Privateer.
Yeah,
only for deer. I bet I put more miles on public land than most people.
I will agree with that.
Probably
Brad,
with the birdies.
Yeah. Brad definitely puts in the miles on the boots. That's for sure.
I don't even know that world, so I can't speak to it.
It's fun, man.
It's a beautiful world, man.
I've got a very controlled experience from it, but not like the bushwhacking version that you do.
If you didn't move like 37 hours away, I'd take you out this weekend.
I know. I love it here, but man, I miss the hell out of you guys. Like, I hate that. I just can't cruise up anymore. Like that part,
buddy. I'm only 4 hours away.
I know you are, man.
And he's got 180 acres or whatever the hell it was.
I know.
I'd be in West Virginia every weekend. Shooting bears and deers.
I was looking, actually, when he was talking about, I was looking at the license fees and all that for non-residents.
I'd be making John's wife jealous that I was hanging out with him so much so I could, get up there and hunt on his land.
If you would have moved to a state with a good wild bird population, Jay, I'd drive down by you for a week.
Ooh.
Well, I know
if you like rough grouse, I got a good population of them and turkeys too.
I've been known to travel and go to multiple states for grouse. I got a dog. We'll travel.
Brad is ready to go. You had him at grouse.
Yeah. Grouse.
That's funny.
There ain't nothing like a good laurel thicket.
Well, there you go. There you go.
But I'm learning out here.
Terrain right there, Brad.
I'm learning out here so I can get you guys down here. I was already telling Brian about turkeys. The turkeys, it's a lot different here versus Illinois.
Turkeys don't do anything for me. If you're like, hey, I could take it to a spot and you could shoot 2 does in a weekend, I'm there.
Working on it.
I don't need antlers. I don't need antlers.
No, just need some meat, man. I know.
Exactly. I'm not picky. But.
Nope.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. Both of these guys have their own podcasts on Paddle and Fin. If you guys aren't listening to them, John is the Rusty Hook Brad is feather and fur. So if you like the hunting content, definitely go tune into that. He covers all kinds of different styles of hunting. John covers a lot of kayak fishing, especially like that northeast section, West Virginia, all that stuff. Some tournament stuff. He's always got Chris Payne on every week talking about some baits and cool things like that. So, and it's cool because Chris makes up some baits a lot of times on your show, and it's super cool to watch that. So I dig it. Thanks everybody that tuned in. We're here live every Thursday night, 7 Central, 8 Eastern, 5 o'clock out on the West Coast. If not, you can catch us on the podcast platforms right after. And yeah, Jay Randall, any final thoughts?
No, good show, guys. Thanks for coming
Enjoyed
on. Yep, and be safe. Be safe out there.
Do you keep a clothespin in your hunting bag? Or a nose plug? Which is it?
Nah, man. Just all you need is Vicks. You're good.
Vicks
under
there
the
you
nose.
go. Vicks vapor, baby. Vapor.
It's like 2 little swabs. Rip, rip. You're good.
Oh, jeez. We'll see you guys next week. Take it easy, everybody.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode here on Paddle and Fin. Be sure to drop a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, or smash that subscribe button on any platform you're listening in on. Be sure to check us out on Waypoint TV, waypointtv.com. Make sure you sign up for the Fantasy Kayak Fishing League at paddleandfin.com/fantasy. You can support this show through Patreon, patreon.com/paddleandfin. Don't forget to check out the website, paddleandfin.com. Catch us on YouTube. If you got a question, comment, or want to see a future guest on the show, be sure to email us at paddleandfin@gmail.com. Shout out to our show supporters, Yak Gadget. You can check out all the fine kayak accessories at yakgadget.com. Pelican Professional. For all your cases, coolers, and lighting needs, go to pelican.com. Rocktown Adventures, your Midwest premier paddle sports destination. Go to rocktownadventures.com. Eastport Marina, the beautiful destination on Dale Hollow Lake. If you're looking for lodging, kayaks, kayak accessories, or anything fishing related on the beautiful Dale Hollow Lake, go to eastport.info. And Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com and fill your tackle boxes today.